I should probably warn you what's about to happen is something you should probably not try at home. Also, if you have the capability to do this yourself at home, Laser Bazooka. Yeah. This is fine. This is safe. This doesn't in any way, shape, or form get you on a watch list if you try and look up the materials to do this, because at some point you have to ask yourself, why do I exist and why is it specifically meant to cause damage through Laser Bazooka? The more I look at this, the more I'm terrified of this man. And I already was pretty terrified. This is also Hoirier in the chat's recommendation. He is responsible for this. This was 8 years ago. He made a Laser Bazooka 8 years ago. Oh, God.
Hey, everybody. Now, I feel like I say this a lot, but I just finished building my most terrifying device yet. So this right here is...
He thought this was the most terrifying? Just throw it out there. I saw a video last week where he drank hydrochloric acid lemonade. Yeah.
My 200-watt Laser Bazooka. 200 watts! Now, just to give you a scope of things, this laser pointer right here is 0.005 watts. That's a...
To give you an idea, the average CPU right now is, if you get a decent one, probably around 600 watts. So this is partially a CPU that needs extensive air cooling and equipment, if you're doing liquid cooling, to make sure it doesn't literally burn up. So yeah.
At the FDA limit where a quick flash to the eyes shouldn't do any eye damage. Now this laboratory laser right here is 0.5 watts, which puts it at the highest danger safety rating for a laser, which means that just looking at the spot on the wall can give you eye damage. And then this baby right here sits at 200 watts, which means it's 400 times over the most dangerous rating imposed by the FDA. So without further ado, let's play with this thing. I built this Laser Bazooka almost completely out of scrap parts and broken electronics.
What did he use to make this thing where it requires a radiological symbol? I mean, it doesn't have any numbers associated with it, so it's probably not too bad. But the fact that it's there...
So the casing of the gun is built out of scrap metal that I cut down with a file and hacksaw. And yes, that took a long time. And then the heart of the gun are these 4 50-watt blue laser diode banks that I ripped out of some broken DLP projectors that I scored off of eBay. Then these parts right here are called knife edgers. They're optical components that combine the individual laser beams from the laser diodes to make a more homogenized beam. Then here's my main focusing lens, which simply condenses the output for up-close burning. Then this is my safety switch, which is really just a screwdriver jammed into a circuit breaker. Then, of course, I also decided to add a LEP adapter and amplifier, because you can't have a good laser gun without one of these.
Oh shit, that's alive. I'm sorry. Apparently people are saying uranium-powered lasers. And the safety switch is just jamming a screwdriver into a circuit board. I'd say don't try this at home, but I think anyone else who tried this would not survive long enough to get to that point. Why?
This thing is so unbelievably dangerous to operate, I had to build this. It's simply a welding mask with laser goggles fit into it. That way I don't go blind when I'm using the laser. Alright, let's...
Because he mentioned that if you look at the higher power ones, even the reflected light would be enough to damage your eyes. I say again, how is this man alive? Uranium Laser Bazooka. Okay.
Hit the safety switch. The power output on this thing is insane. In fact, a direct hit to the eyes would be 33 million times more intense than staring into the sun. And actually, I'm pretty sure that this is the strongest portable laser that's ever been built by a hobbyist. So that's pretty awesome. And man...
And yet we have video evidence of him this year making a laser turret that actually burns things on contact. If he had a different focusing device right now, he probably could actually do that. Michael Hamilton, the birth of Mothra, and Vitan mentioned, looks like something's about to be banned. Yeah, oh god, yes.
Like I'm holding a bolt of lightning in my hands. This is definitely my new favorite toy. Let's shoot through this computer case.
And yeah, there's the focusing. Because before it was unfocused, and now he has it focused, so it's spot lasering. Hey, it's a Dell. Well, at least they're using something that won't be missed. And yeah, you can see it's starting to go through. No, it's starting to reflect.
Titanium infused gunpowder.
What? Why?
A block of wood. Barium flare mix.
Isn't that? Oh no, that's going to go up.
A cardboard box.
8 years ago. He did all of this up close 8 years ago. I usually joke right about now that this is full-on 40K tech, but frankly, it feels a lot more Fallout. And Tudor mentioned that this is some Fallout shit. Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. This is very much Fallout shit. He literally used a hacksaw to build this. I guess that would technically make him a hack.
And finally, some balloons.
What? If this was more focused, it probably would...
I'm glad to have finally finished this beast, because that means I can just start working on some of my other projects. And in the coming months, I have a lot of crazy stuff planned.
This wasn't the crazy stuff! Real talk. If this is the normal stuff he was just doing to see if he could, what does he consider the crazy stuff? You know what? No. That's the next video. That's going to be the crazy stuff. The 2020 most powerful CW handheld laser. So we're going to move on and see what he decided to upgrade to. At some point, I'm just waiting for someone in the chat to make a mention of how he's been reached out to by the Canadian military because they want advice on future war crimes.
Hey everybody, it's the year 2020 and I want to celebrate. Now typically on this channel, I like building crazy contraptions out of old garbage, but today I want to change that up a bit and build something using some cutting edge laser technology. Now the goal here is to build something that's not only stupidly powerful, but is a downright reckless demonstration of the fact that we are living in the future. And let's be honest, what could be a better way to celebrate the times? When we think of...
When in 2020 did this come out? March! This would be literally... This came out as the pandemic was in its first real month. Because it was kind of there in February, but no one really knew. And March is when it started going, oh God, so we had to start recording this before the pandemic to make this out. There's a joke in there somewhere, but that gets way too depressing way too fast.
Of technological advancement, we usually think of our electronics getting smaller and more powerful. Now lasers are no exception to this, with high power lasers becoming more efficient.
Wait, they do what?
And more powerful. Now lasers...
Argon ion laser 1995, 0.07 watts, and it's this big? That much? Oh wow. 20 kilograms about.
Are no exception to this, with high power lasers becoming more efficient.
And diode lasers and flashing casing. 2019 output 1 watt, weight 100 grams.
Efficient and available in smaller packages. Recently, I was able to score an engineering sample for this absolute monster of a blue laser diode array, rated for a whopping 95 watts of output power, and probably capable of quite a bit more than that.
So that alone is 95 watts, where the Laser Bazooka was an entire array. So this is more constant. So the previous one was 200 watts. But it had a much bigger spread, where this is just this single array of diodes. So it's half the power almost, but way more contained.
So naturally, I want to jam this thing into a tiny housing for a hilariously dangerous laser pointer. Now in fact, going off the rated output power alone, this thing should actually make for the most powerful CW handheld laser in the entire world. So yeah, without further ado, let's get to building. There's a lot that goes into building a record-breaking laser project, but one of the nice things about the internet age is that I don't have to grind out grant applications in order to fund a project like this. Instead, I get to promote cool projects.
Oh god, he's right. Someone would actually file a grant for this. There are Did he... Prior to starting his YouTube channel, did he actually file grants to make weapons of war crimes? Oh god, there's probably war crime ideas he has floating around that have just been left rotting because he moved on to other things on YouTube. I think I just had the most terrifying thought ever. Not even what I said, but there's probably an entire list of ideas he's had. It's like, you know what? Maybe this one isn't safe. Now think about everything we've seen so far and wonder, what would he consider not safe? I'm going to give you a second to have that momentary breakdown, to acknowledge the fear. And then we're going to move on, because the best way to deal with this level of fear is just to repress it intentionally and never think about it again.
Products. Yeah, that's right. This video is sponsored, but unlike most investors, my sponsor is totally cool with me funneling resources into building something for the coolness factor alone. And in fact, I want to give a big thank you to Raid Shadow Legends.
Honestly, I was expecting him to say the U.S. military-industrial complex at this point.
For sponsoring this video. You've probably heard about Raid Shadow Legends at this point since so many people are playing, but to those who haven't had the chance to play it yet, Raid is a free-to-play dark fantasy RPG
Years later, they
game
still do
with
it.
incredible 3D graphics and an amazing storyline to go along with it. If you're tired of all your RPGs being all cartoony and cutesy, then you'll be pleasantly surprised by Raid Shadow Legends. The mobile gameplay here is really on the level that you'd expect from a console or PC game.
Make some good character design.
In fact, there's actually a cross-compatible PC version already.
This version does look dated.
It's actually literally insane how these graphics look, because just 10 years ago, all you could play is Snake on this thing.
Actually, it's funny he should mention that. This is from almost 5 years ago. Closer to 5 than not. And I'm just looking at this going like, wow, that graphic is... It looks dated. Not bad, but dated. And it's almost the same difference as that, and wow, they do change.
Ha! I do love dropping the acid rain on my enemies. The new Battle Pass feature.
You know, anyone else saying that, it's funny. Him!
Their daily and weekly challenges.
Not so much!
And Season 1 is open now. Go to the video description and click on the special links. And if you're a new player, you'll get 100,000 silver, 50...
Hi, everyone. This is a video that I did not get sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends to commit war crimes. Styropyro did. So whenever there eventually is a war and they make these handheld versions that he just uppowers, you can remember, this war is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. Link in the description for your war crimes. I mean, it wouldn't be the biggest change. There's plenty of companies that made that shift, so why not?
Gems, an energy refill, and the champion adjudicator. To find all this loot,
they
just
do
go to
look
your
significantly
in-game
older,
inbox
though.
right here. The adjudicator is a super tough champion in the game and will be really useful for new players.
I have no idea the power level in this game,
just
so
lay
I have no
waste
idea
to
if
our
this looks bad or not.
So what are you waiting for? Let's play.
I mean, he used
Oh yeah, I should warn you that all the crazy stuff that you're about to see was done completely for educational purposes. In fact, if you were to try...
Educational. Educational. YouTube, if you're watching, this is educational. Specifically, the education of, oh dear God, why? The why is being answered right now. The dear God is what we are all screaming every time we see this guy and realize this is a real person. This stuff exists. This is not fantasy. Someone has done this and now the world shudders.
Any of this stuff at home, you'd probably die. So yeah, please don't try this at home. Now there's some shady stuff going on with this crazy laser diode array, because it's apparently made by Nietzsche, but if you actually go to the website, there's actually no information available on this part.
It's a test sample. I don't think they would have that out yet, would they?
In fact, this
Actually, is he even allowed to show this? No, he probably is because he's still up.
data sheet here was just given to me by the person who sold it to me. So that means that either this part's fake, or the public just isn't supposed to have these things yet. And now going off of past experiences with powerful laser diodes, I'm actually going to bet it's the latter. But either way, it can't hurt to fire this thing up just to make sure it works. Alright, so I
have you considered maybe moving behind the blast radius? Just throwing it out there.
Strap the laser array onto this heatsink here and then add some test leads. Now this silicone thermal padding isn't exactly ideal, but I won't be running this thing very long for this little test. Alright, I have it sitting just below threshold there. It is now ready to fire up. Alright, here goes nothing. Oh, jeez, wow, look at that beam. Man, it's lighting up the whole room there, too. That's insane.
That's a lot of dispersion, though, if that much light is going out outside of the beam itself.
Gosh, what's that, like 10, 20% of the rated power? Oh, man. Oh, this thing is going to look ridiculous.
That's 20%. Maybe it's just the camera, but there's significant bloom off of that. Oh, boy. We are at dangerous levels of Canada already.
Ridiculous at full power. Wow.
You can
Oh,
see.
and check that out. You can see all the little
just
beamers
everything in
there,
the
too.
air
I wasn't
going.
expecting those to be so visible. Oh, man, wow. Oh, oops, I better kill it before I light that beam stopping fire.
Oh, God, it's actually
Now, it's funny
smoking.
because part of the reason why this array even exists is to prevent hobbyists from using them. Now, it turns out that
His ceiling was smoking, but 20% power was... And Yorkshire, he is a War Thunder player because he's leaking classified documents by his logic. Oh, God. See, that's not fair. These wouldn't be classified because they don't have enough knowledge about it to know that it should be classified yet. That logic shouldn't make sense, but I'm sure it does for someone, and that terrifies me.
one of the biggest uses of blue laser diodes is in hybrid DLP projectors, and the manufacturers are sick of us tearing them apart for the laser.
Wait, aren't DLP projectors used in resin printing? I thought some of the high-end ones... Oh, yeah, because people tear them apart.
I guess what little money that they make from those sales just isn't worth the bad publicity if somebody gets hurt. Now, by combining all the lasers into one small part...
Is he talking about the people tearing them apart or the people they use... Both. It's both. It's definitely both.
They think that they can stop us from using them. And in fact, this is explicitly stated on some data sheets for laser diode arrays. Now, what they don't account for is psychos like me that'll just run the entire array at once using a giant battery pack. On the thermal cam, you can see that it doesn't take long for this laser to heat up. And really, that's no surprise considering the extreme power density of this little unit.
Maybe my scale when it comes to heating up is broken because I'm used to PC temperatures where I could maintain 80 degrees Celsius and consider that a pretty reasonable output. 71 degrees Fahrenheit? I don't really care.
Now, since laser diodes hate heat, I'm going to have to be extra careful that I don't bake the poor thing when it gets put inside the laser pointer housing.
Oh, it's heating up.
Alright, so that's enough screwing around for the time being. It's time to get to building.
Did anyone else notice that there's an actual burn mark he's already put into his ceiling? Yeah, because he lifted up the board and he put its own board to collect the damage that he does when he burns shit. This is someone who has definitely accidentally nearly lit his house on fire before, isn't it? Yeah, it probably is.
Get to building. For the laser's housing, I'm going to use this sweet retro-looking radar gun that my friend scored from a junkyard. Now, amazingly, this thing was actually in use till just a couple years ago. Now, at least according to this calibration sticker here. Now, why it got thrown away, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it finally broke, or maybe it just got replaced by something newer. But either way, I'm just thankful that it got saved before meeting the trash compactor, because this thing...
Oh, joy, he has a handheld laser cannon. I'm assuming his side business is just future tech laser weaponry, because at this point, if he doesn't patent this to keep other people from doing it, someone's going to watch his videos and become inspired.
I think it's just way too cool to get scrapped for its metal content. I went ahead and tore down that radar gun there, and I have to say, there's a lot of cool stuff inside this thing. For one, you have these old school through-hole PCBs, and then obviously this really nifty microwave horn here. And there's even some maintenance logs here that go back to the 90s. And check this out. If you look at this board here, it says it was made in 1985. So that means that this thing was being used for like 35 years in the field, which is actually really impressive. Now, I won't be needing most of the parts on this thing, other than this switch here, and then obviously this really cool casing. This is essentially going to be a scaled up version of my other giant handheld lasers. So along with the laser array, I need to fit in a power source, a constant current driver, and some method of cooling. Now this is...
I'm actually surprised he hasn't built a battery backpack just to feed it for a couple seconds of constant fire. Ugh.
This isn't exactly going to be easy, since a 100-watt laser in a handheld unit is literally insane. Like that's the same output power as this monster surgical laser over here. Heat is going to be the biggest issue.
Oh joy, he had a surgical
laser. About 300 watts. Now of that, a little over a third of that power is going to be emitted as laser light, which is actually really efficient. But still,
So 70%, 66% of it would just be burned off as heat and ambient light then? So all the damage burning his ceiling was just the residue.
That means there's an extra 200 watts of heat plus whatever's wasted in the drivers to get rid of. Now if I were building this into a benchtop unit, I'd use TEC cooling or even liquid cooling for solid thermal regulation. But this just isn't practical in a handheld unit since that would actually generate more total heat to deal with, so I'm just going to resort to using a big heatsink. As for coming up with the right heatsink, I suppose you could take some measurements and make a 3D model that could be CNC'd. But who am I kidding? I don't know anything about 3D modeling software.
There's things he doesn't know. I'm assuming the answer is going to be more terrifying, but at the same time, someone probably introduced him to 3D software at some point, and I don't think that makes it any worse. Maybe I'll just distract him so we survive a little long before he decides, hey, what happens if I replicate the Demon Core, but with the size of Manhattan? That should be a joke. Everything I just said should be ridiculous. But there's someone out there who's going, you know what? He probably would do that. That someone's me, and it's terrifying.
And besides, power tools are a lot more fun, so I'm just going to hack at this hunk of aluminum here until it fits in the housing.
I mean, that is basically engineer thought process right there. Oh boy. He's just having fun turning on all the machines, isn't he? He's just randomly hitting with a hammer. Oh, that's a hacksaw? Why? I wonder how much is just him making random bullshit happen because it's fun. Yeah, this is a lot of that. Does he actually need to sand it? And that's how you summon Kirby. What the hell? Oh, he's actually working too. Drilling out the holes? Yep, and it fits. God. So the heatsink is literally just this giant block? No fins, no... Oh. What's he doing here? Heat transfer somehow? Huh. Oh no, it's so that they can be contained when he ties them in.
Alright, so here's the completed heatsink. Now, is it ugly? Well, yeah, but part of the reason why I'm using this radar casing is so you can't tell that it's total trash on the inside. Now, since space is so limited, I'll be attaching the drivers to it also. Now, you can't just hook up laser diodes to a battery and expect them to survive more than a second. You need some sort of current regulation. Now, there are a lot of ways to make a constant current driver, but I ended up going with LM338s, which actually isn't as stupid as you might think. Now, for one, they're simple to implement and provide a steady output, but they're also surprisingly efficient when ran at the higher end of the rated voltage, and along with a small input to output voltage differential. I decided to run the laser diodes at 3.2 amps per string, which is pushing them a bit since the manufacturer only suggests 3 amps, but I'll only be running them for short increments of time. Now, I'm taking this risk since I really want to clear the elusive 100 watt mark, which has likely never been done in a handheld laser. Now, going off of the stated slope efficiency curve, driving the laser diodes at 3.2 amps should give an output power of 101.8 watts. Yikes. Alright, so here's a quick rundown of what the circuitry looks like inside. So I stuck a volt...
To give an idea of power comparison, I got a resin 3D printer I'm eventually going to get working. It takes about that much to run the entire thing. Which I guess makes sense because it's a bunch of UV lasers making models out of resin. This is just making people into smears on the ground. Sure, why not?
Voltmeter here to read the voltage of the batteries. Then right here's a thermometer to read the temperature at the laser diode array. Now I stuck a lot of switches on this thing. This is the main power switch.
Oh no, they're actually functional.
I used this switch that came with the unit as a safety switch. That also feeds into a indicator LED that's on the front here. Now as for the trigger, I didn't quite trust it to handle the high current that those lasers were going to take, so instead I just have it signaling to this massive MOSFET here to handle the bulk of the power switching. As for mounting the laser array, I need to be...
So he has a switch. So he has a trigger attached to a switch because the switch itself would literally blow up on him. I feel that even viewing this makes me an accomplice. I've said that in his other videos, and I stand by it because I think that's his entire channel. If you're viewing this, you're probably being added to a list of people who should never be trusted in a hardware store. I mean, I was probably on that list regardless because I have so little actual ability to use it that I'm more dangerous with shit there than those who would actually know what they're doing. But that's beside the point.
Be absolutely sure I can wick away the heat as fast as possible to the aluminum. I ended up using what the pros use.
Kind of surprised he didn't do like a backpack setup.
Now, indium is excellent for thermal bonding since it's extremely soft. Like you can cut a bar of it with a butter knife. Now, by bolting down the array over a sheet of indium, the indium spreads out to fill voids in left from my imperfect machining.
Oh, that's one way to do it.
Now that I got everything mounted, my final task is...
Actually, if you just pulled up some PC parts for thermal paste or a thermal pad right now, that might actually be more efficient too. I don't want to think about what him being more efficient would look like. I legitimately don't want to think about it.
To add a beefy source of power for this circuit. Now this is where lithium battery tech saves the day yet again, as powering this 30 volt 13 amp circuit is a cakewalk for these two batteries here. Now in theory I should get about 7 minutes of runtime per charge, but it'll likely end up being a little bit lower than that.
How fast does he get to change out the batteries?
I did not leave myself much space to jam in those batteries, and I had to rewire some connections as well as modify the battery casings a bit to make them fit. But even so, they just barely fit in there. And yeah, it was scary trying to close the case, because shorting the batteries would cause a fiery nightmare to say the least. Okay, everything's put together now. I guess it's finally time to test this thing out. But first I gotta put on my laser goggles, because seriously, just looking at the output of this thing on a surface is definitely enough to burn your eyeballs out. Alright, so here's the main power switch. You can see the readout there for the battery voltage and then the temperature. Then right here's the safety switch, which arms the laser. Alright, here goes nothing.
So he built in everything for a sci-fi version of if the voltage would be your remaining rounds and the temperature is the cooldown, proving Mass Effect actually was accurate in how it depicted guns. I'm not okay with this.
Wow, that's insane! Wow, check out how it lights up my whole shop there. Completely overpowers the light. Oh man, that's a scary amount of power. Wow. Now just to give you an idea on how stupidly powerful this laser is, I have a couple other lasers here to compare it to. So this laser right here is 5 milliwatts. So a direct hit from anything stronger than this is going to cause eye damage faster than you can blink, or even just a reflection off of a shiny surface. Now this laser right here is 500 milliwatts, or half a watt. So that puts it in the highest laser danger rating there is. So that means that not only is it a fire hazard, but just looking at the spot on a surface can burn your eyeballs out without goggles. And then there's this laser, which...
And my video froze. That's weird.
Or half a watt. But just looking at the spot on a surface can burn your eyeballs out without goggles.
Oh, apparently it's just part of the actual video.
For something like this to even exist. And yet here I am, flaunting. Seriously, there's no sane reason for which eclipses that rating 200 times over. I mean, seriously, there's no sane reason for something like this to even exist. And yet here I am, flaunting it on a YouTube video. Okay, so what can I even do with it? The same thing as any other gadget that isn't boring.
Burn things?
Light stuff on fire.
He's lighting his own desk on fire, of course.
Torches my desk.
It's immediate. This is not focused. And that's probably the difference between this and the laser turret he made in a later video, because that was focused because it was specifically meant for a purpose, where this one is just straight light coming down.
I'm not even using a lens here. The power density is already way higher than my Laser Bazooka. As for the other burning tests, let's start with the easy stuff. I wonder how fast I can pop these balloons with the laser. That never gets old. Let's try it on a paper bag. Huh, well that's terrifying. Geez, that lit on fire like nothing. Yeah, this thing is a lot of fun. Can the raw output...
And he just runs to jump on it. Handheld. These are handheld.
Would ignite wood?
That's a yes.
I'll take that as a yes. How about a ping pong ball?
Does it pop? Or just burn? Oh, it burns!
Alright, that's pretty cool. It turns out ping pong balls are surprisingly flammable due to their nitrocellulose content.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of nitrocellulose, here's a little bit of flash paper.
Does that stuff burn immediately? Oh, yeah!
Since I'm already igniting a bunch of random stuff, I might as well put that chemistry degree of mine to use and whip up something exciting.
There are a few phrases in the English language that, in context, should never be said. I think I have a new one to add to the list. Whip up something exciting. The context being Styropyro is the one saying it. I feel primal fear right now. And I think it's completely justified. Sure. Why not?
Huh.
Okay, that does actually
I
look
love
pretty cool.
lighting stuff on fire. This right here is one of my most requested laser experiments.
Meat?
Can it cook a steak? One way to find out.
I mean, technically you can char it.
That smells so good. Listen to that baby sizzle.
Actually, theoretically, if you had a thin enough cut of meat and an array that it would be brought over automatically, you could theoretically auto-cook steak. I just had the dumbest idea that he should do a combo with a cooking channel, like Binging with Babbage, the Styropyro edition. We're going to cook the steak at 200 miles away with a laser that can kill the moon.
Huh, and you thought microwaves were bad at cooking food all the way through.
Yeah, that'd be bad. Theoretically, though, if it's a thin enough cut that it could do it and you could regulate temperature, laser cooking would work. It just, why?
Some people might ask, how hot is the beam itself? Well, the thing is, there isn't actually a temperature.
Oh, that would be a yes.
Yeah, it's hot. Okay, well the beam doesn't exactly have a temperature, but it certainly can heat up objects very quickly. Now, how hot depends on a lot of factors, but this piece of wood here heats by hundreds of degrees in under a second.
I mean, Fahrenheit 451 is where it lights on fire. That's a bit higher than that.
Let's tackle another popular viewer question.
And to quote Coffee Acorn Music, recipes for serving 30 to life. That seems like an accurate way to describe this entire video.
Can I send electricity down the laser beam?
Oh.
To test this, I have a voltage.
Actually, I've heard about people doing this exact thing. I've heard lasers are very inefficient for this, and they've actually found it's just easier to do general usage. But I don't remember how effective any of it actually was.
Multiplier stack that produces very high voltage DC. When the leads are close, the field is strong enough to ionize the air and cause an arc to form. But when they're further apart, the field is weak enough that the only current that passes is from corona. Now when I shoot a laser between the gap, there's no arc as the beam is not conductive. Now if the laser were millions of times more powerful, it could rip apart the molecules in the air to make a conductive plasma.
You know that moment of absolute terror you get? I reject my previous statement. That was nothing. He just described a plasma weapon. Exactly what he already has, but a very powerful laser ionizing a direct path for electricity to burn the shit out of someone at distance. It's a two-stage weapon. The first part is making a path by burning the air. The second part is sending the oh god what the fuck payload through said burned path. You do it fast enough, like with electronics, and you now have plasma weaponry. I was joking about las guns. Now we have plasma cannons.
But unfortunately I can't do that with this laser. I can cheat a bit using fire though. By sticking some matches between the gap, I can ignite them with the laser to generate some thermal ions. What happens here is that these ions get accelerated by the field and then smash into other neutral molecules in the air, which generate...
He said he needed 1,000,000 times more power. And here earlier in this video demonstrated how power requirements became easier. Between the tiny laser and the one he had, it went from a giant pile to something he can hold in his hand reasonably safely. I say reasonably because it's Styropyro. Nothing ever technically counts as safe. The first video we did today was roughly 7-8 years ago. Whatever he does, if he survives in the next decade, will probably be an actual plasma weapon.
Generates more ions. This process cascades until you have a giant arc between the electrodes. Alright, so the raw output of the laser is certainly impressive, but I still think I can do better. I wonder how much more damage it could do if I use a lens to focus down the beam. A smaller spot means more damage, as shrinking the beam size in half will actually quadruple the power density on the target. I mean, anybody who's played with a magnifying glass on a sunny day can attest to this. But that being said, using a lens to focus down a laser ray does have its issues. Even from simple ray optics, you can see that a lens doesn't actually combine the beams, as it also images the gaps between them. Plus, you have effects like spherical aberration, and the fact that each individual beam is diverging, and anisotropically to make matters worse. But the thing is, using any sort of beam correction on an integrated array like this is incredibly difficult. As far as lens systems go, I found what's probably the best option for the laser in a prototype.
The other option he could do is individual pieces for every beam that are calibrated with a machine running a program to orient them on the same target. Add a rangefinder, and you could have it be, okay, here's my target, and then they reorient and burn wherever the rangefinder's at. And Coffee Acorn mentioned Lockheed Martin stocks went up from this video. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised.
Prototype projector I had sitting around. It's a big AR-coated f-theta lens that's rated...
Actually, no, I'm going to take that back. I don't think Lockheed Martin would like this guy because he can do a lot of the stuff he does on a much lower budget than they would willingly charge anyone. It would probably break their entire model of pricing if, you know, they could actually afford to make things.
For high laser powers. I made a mount for it using PVC fittings and then stuck it in front of the laser array. So how much more damage can it do? Using a piece of wood as a target shows that the beam shrinks to 1/5 of the original size, which means a 20...
You don't see the beam, you just see the, oh god, it's burning everything amount. And then as it's powering down for a single click. 1, 2, 3. It is 3 individual frames long. And it's HD. So, yeah. Okay.
A 5-fold increase in power density. It's crazy how instantly wood ignites in the beam. This makes it really great at engraving wood. I've never had
a basically what a laser
engraver
wood
is so easily.
You actually see them in.
There's nothing like a nice, refreshing bottle of soda after a long day of building death rays. But it looks like I forgot to bring a bottle opener.
Is that a bottle of Michelob Ultra?
What am I supposed to do now? Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I can just use the most powerful handheld laser in the world.
Oh, it was actually reflecting a bit. And he's cutting glass.
Well, that's certainly frightening. Yeah, that's molten glass you're looking at. That was probably the most metal thing I've ever done on this channel.
The most metal thing yet. We have seen what came later. Oh, it's Miller Lite. Never mind. So it's basically
I wonder
water.
if I can use the laser to burn DVDs.
I don't think that's what they mean when you say you burn a disc.
How about some coarse steel wool? Ooh, pretty orange sparks. Okay, this one's total overkill, but let's cut some electrical tape. And that was pretty satisfying. Can the laser strip the paint off of this steel lid? One way to find out.
Definitely. We saw that in the other video. It's actually doing really Okay, unironically, that is actually very satisfying.
Huh. It works, but not very great. Actually, it seems to be damaging the metal itself. Okay, that's pretty ridiculous.
You can see where the metal's actually melting.
Through.
Yep.
Wow, that's crazy.
He makes a lot of laser weapons, doesn't he?
I did not expect to see the day where I could shoot through metal with a handheld laser. Like, that's just unbelievable.
I mean, the handheld part, yeah. The other one you made that we already saw was a turret, which had entire housing, and it was harder to move, but I also... And Martinez, why are you telling me he made a ruby laser that literally burns air? Why are you telling me this? I don't want to know this. I don't want this in my head. Just take this information away from me. It is not making me feel safe. If anything, it should make everyone feel terrified. Because if someone wasn't already thinking about it, they're going to. It's fascinating, but
it wasn't even that long
really
ago that a blue laser of this strength would require the setup the size of a building to operate. So check out my massive argon ion laser that was made in 1995. Now by massive, of course, I'm referring to its physical size. The physics going on here is really cool, where the laser emission is coming from an ionized argon plasma inside the tube. This particular system makes 9 distinct colors that are apparent when the beam is split up with a diffraction gradient. But for all but just a few applications, the argon laser has been rendered obsolete by the blue laser diode. So why is that? This behemoth of a laser only outputs about 70 milliwatts, yet it takes a whopping 1,500 watts to produce that output. It's crazy just how fast laser tech has progressed. I mean...
95. This is 30 years ago. Almost 30 years ago. Yeah, there's going to be some shit going on after this. Hoyer, the ruby laser is a real-life single-shot lasgun, and I was saving it for next week. This is unfortunately water. I wish it wasn't right now. I think next week is going to give me a panic attack.
This laser isn't even that old. It's only a couple years older than my cat Puttytin. Yet this handheld laser built in 2020 is well over 1,000 times stronger while consuming a quarter of the electricity, and also only being a...
So for him, that would have been 25 years later. And how many times stronger?
Is well over 1,000 times stronger while...
It's 1,000 times stronger. So earlier we mentioned that he was describing plasma weaponry, and it would have to be 1,000 times, or was it 1,000,000 times? Considering the rate of increase keeps increasing in most technology, if that was 25 years before, I think by 2050, he's literally just going to make a plasma weapon if he survives that long. And by survives, I mean, does he blow up whatever sea border he's nearest? And I do mean whatever. Not is he near a sea border, whatever. Because if it's in the middle of the country, there's going to be a sudden lake there.
Consuming a quarter of the electricity, and also only being a fraction of the size. Now I think that's pretty cool. While this laser is definitely pushing the envelope for power to size factor, I'm not the one who made this kind of build possible. This project is actually based on 2 recent Nobel Prize winning technologies. There's the lithium-ion battery that won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2019, and the blue LED that won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2014. Lithium batteries are incredible in their energy storage capabilities, and that's why they're used in our phones and laptops and pretty much everything around us. I actually used a small lithium battery to jumpstart a car.
And people have started moving into salt batteries. They're not as efficient, but they're a lot cheaper to make. I wonder if he could easily make, oh no, a giant salt battery if he ever learned how to do that.
Then there's the blue LED, which directly led to the blue laser diode. The award here wasn't given for portable death rays, but instead for the highly efficient and long-lasting white light sources made from them. Without either of these technologies, this project would not have been possible, so the real credit goes to all the scientists and engineers who worked on this groundbreaking research.
And to the people who did that, I say congratulations, you've doomed us all. In a very admittedly awesome way, but you have done so.
Now that being said, I'll happily be remembered as the nutcase that jammed a 100-watt laser in a handheld device. Now I do...
1, I paused at a very terrifying but also really cool time. 2, that's one way to do snow removal.
I want to clarify my claim that this is the most powerful handheld laser in the world. I'm referring to CW here, because pulse lasers can have very high peak powers while having low average power. I built a handheld laser 4 years ago that had higher peak power, but only for bursts of 10 billionths of a second per shot. But for a continuous wave laser that you can hold in your hand with a fully contained power source, I'm fairly certain that this is the most powerful in the world. One last thing I should mention is that you don't have to get into record-breaking territory before lasers get dangerous.
What?
This 1-watt blue laser from eBay will damage your eyes by just looking at the spot and would shut the lights out forever with a direct hit if you aren't wearing goggles. These $3 laser pointers from eBay can shoot a hole in your retina faster than you can blink, even without a direct hit, since they're usually way stronger than advertised. If you're interested in the hobby of lasers, awesome. With the right precautions, it's a very educational hobby. But my goodness, please read a bunch about laser safety before ever ordering a laser online.
That is pretty cool.
Alright, so that's all I have for you today.
Did the Cybertruck really get announced this long ago? Also, his version still looks... This actually still looks better than the actual Cybertruck.
But until the next time, stay safe and happy lasing.
This is fine. This is safe. We're not in danger. To give an example, that was 8 and 4 years ago. The most recent giant laser one was when he made a laser turret. Now that was a sitting projectile, but he didn't make that. He just happened to buy something that could do that. And I've been told by people in the chat, and Hoarier's going to pull up, a ruby laser that makes them all look safe by comparison. Normally, this is where I ask, how is Styropyro still alive? I think this is the wrong question. And the correct one is, how has he left us alive at this point? Because, oh dear God, that is an actual question you can ask. Yep. Basically what I'm saying is, thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to go have a panic attack.